Love to see people streaming in right at the top of the hour, even a minute early. Thank you all for joining us today. Welcome, welcome. Happy Wednesday. Great, love to see everyone streaming in. My name is Bernadette Van Giesen. I'm with Stories Inc. We're going to give everyone just another minute or two to join. We have a really jam-packed session today that we can't wait to get into. So thank you all for being here live. While we wait, we're going to launch a quick poll just to kind of get a little bit of a state of where people are. So as we're waiting for everyone to join, we would love to hear what strategies you have used to activate your EVP internally. So we have a few options here. Feel free to check all that apply. If you've done all of them, you can check all of the above. We just love to hear kind of the state of things that you all are working on out there. Looks like employee storytelling campaign is the top one so far. Love that. See some manager training, partnering with employee resource groups. Wonderful. And then for people who maybe have checked none of the above because they're just getting started, don't worry, we're going to be sharing a ton of tips and insights today that you are going to be able to apply right away. Awesome, awesome. Again, for those of you who are tuning in, thank you for being here. We're going to give everyone, we'll give like 1 or 2 more minutes for people to join, and then we're going to get right into our session. And would love, we'll have the chat going today. So if people want to jump in the chat and share where they're joining from, just to get the chatter started. My name is Bernadette. I'm tuning in from Maryland, right outside of Washington, DC. Jamia and Shannon, where are you tuning in from?
I am in Durham, North Carolina.
And I'm coming live from Mexico City, Mexico.
Awesome, love it. Okay, great. I think we can get started. Okay, thanks everyone for joining us. So we're going to get started. We have a really fantastic session today. We are going to be talking about engaging and retaining and how to activate your EVP internally. Thanks for joining us. This session is live, so please feel free to add questions in the chat. We're going to save the questions for the end. But please feel free to add them throughout the session, and we will do our best to get to all of them at the end. And if we don't have time, we'll follow up afterwards. But please engage in the chat. Please tell us what you're working on and what's resonating all over the course of the session. And then we are recording this, and you will receive the recording after the fact. Okay. I'm going to end our poll. Okay, great. Looks like employee storytelling campaign was the top response. Love that. Okay. Okay. So for anyone new here, we are Stories Inc. And we're hosting this webinar today. Thank you so much for being here. And hang on. So if you're new here, Stories Inc. is an employer brand content agency that specializes in employee storytelling. We help organizations uncover authentic stories that showcase their culture in action and turn those stories into videos, blogs, graphics, and other digital content that fuel your talent channels. Over the past 12 years, we've had the pleasure of partnering with some amazing clients that you see here, including the wonderful Sodexo team. We're joined by Jamia today. So we also love sharing all of the insights we gain along the way. So if you enjoy today's session, please subscribe to our newsletter or follow us on LinkedIn to stay connected. Okay, so it's not just me today. So my name is Bernadette. I lead marketing here at Stories Inc. But really, I'm very pleased to introduce the 2 folks who join me on the virtual stage today, Jamia Belton from Sodexo and Shannon Edwards from the Stories Inc. team. Jamia, do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jamia Belton. I'm the Director of Talent Experience here at Sodexo. I've been with Sodexo for almost 2 years now, but in the employer brand space for about 13 years across several different industries. So I'm excited to be here today and partnering with Stories Incorporated, and I hope you guys leave this webinar with a few new nuggets that can help you on your EVP journey.
And I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Shannon Edwards, and I'm an account manager at Stories Inc. I've been here for about 2.5 years, and prior to Stories, I was an inclusion and diversity specialist at a Fortune 500 company, and hold a degree in industrial organization psychology. So excited to bring those lenses to the conversation today, and as Jamia said, hopefully give you some nuggets to leave with.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you both for being here. Okay, so we have a really packed session in store for you all today. First, so here's what we're going to talk about. First, we're going to dive into the strategy behind internal activation and why it's so critical for the success of your employee value proposition. Next, Jamia will lead a fantastic case study on how Sodexo activated their EVP internally and embedded it into their employees' daily experience. And she is going to share that frontline workforce lens, which I know is a challenge for anyone who has that aspect of their workforce. And then finally, we're going to cover how to use employee storytelling to drive sustained engagement with your EVP internally. Okay, so first, let's dive into that strategy. So why internal activation is key to the success of your EVP. So I know that everyone here is familiar with employer branding and what an employee value proposition is. So we're not going to spend time defining that. But to set the stage for our conversation today, let's take a moment to consider the two key audiences we're speaking to when we craft our EVP, and that's external candidates and current employees. Externally, your EVP is the promise you make to potential employees. It's the story of what your culture can offer candidates in exchange for their skills, and it sets expectations for what it's like to work at your company. Internally, though, your EVP is the lived experience of your current employees and the reality of your culture on a day-to-day basis. So the big question is, do these two align? Are you delivering the same experience internally that you're promising externally? And so what I think is really interesting is, generally speaking, most companies are focusing more on this external piece, attracting talent and making bold promises about what their culture can offer. But the internal side is arguably more important, because a strong external message means nothing if it's not backed by a solid internal reality. So today we're going to shift that focus inward and talk about how to activate that EVP in a way that nurtures your internal culture and ensures you deliver on your promise to employees every day. So one of the reasons companies may choose to focus on external EVP activation is because, frankly, it is easier. And that's no shade to external EVP work. It's still really important and it has its own unique challenges. But as we get into our conversation today, I think it's important to talk about the 6 unique challenges that you face when activating an EVP internally. And the first is cultural resistance. Changing long-established norms is tough, especially with employees who have been with your company for years. So they might be skeptical to new EVP messaging. Second, you need to make the promise real. Externally, candidates have to take you at your word, whereas internally, employees will quickly notice any gap between your EVP's promise and their lived experience. So when activating your EVP, it has to be really credible and lived, not just marketing fluff. Personalization at scale is another challenge. Your workforce is diverse, you're spread across many locations, job categories, and employee demographics. A one-size-fits-all EVP won't resonate across the board. And tailoring it to the different needs across your workforce while activating is essential, but really tricky. Then there's influencing internally. So with external EVP campaigns, you can get away with operating from your employer brand silo and just kind of communicating straight from employer brand and talent acquisition to candidates. But internally, you need that buy-in across leadership. If leaders aren't living the EVP and embodying your pillars, employees will not believe in it. And our last 2, sustaining engagement, it really is a long game. Unlike external recruiting that can be successful on one-time conversions, internally you need to engage employees over months, years, and even decades throughout their journey at your
Jamia, is that frozen for you as well?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right, everyone. I think I can pick up where we left off. Assuming
Can
that,
you hear me? Can you hear me now?
yes,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, where did it leave off for you?
The last bullet point.
Oh, okay, great. So sustaining engagement, so that you need to engage employees over months, years, and even decades throughout their time in your company, as opposed to one-time conversions. And then the last challenge facing internal EVP activation is measuring impact. So those metrics like engagement and morale are trickier to quantify than external hires or applications. So if I had to sum all of these up, the biggest challenge facing internal EVP activation is that it's the ultimate long game. You must be thorough, consistent, and patient to see your work really compound on itself over time. So now that we've kind of talked about what makes this really hard, Shannon's going to talk about how you can really create this positive reality in your workplace.
Thank you, Bernadette. So yeah, we're talking about this is a long game. It's not a one-time event, which is how we often see this treated. EVP, when the EVP is launched, that might be the activation and that might be all we see. When in actuality, we need to take a holistic long-term approach that goes so much deeper than the initial EVP launch. That means embedding your EVP across every touch point that shapes your employee experience. Every area that impacts culture should be a reflection of this. This whole holistic approach will require a lot of work from your team. To achieve this, you'll have to build a lot of new relationships. You might have to conduct trainings, refresh policies, plan events. Really just making sure that your EVP is being woven into your internal communication strategies. So when this is all done right, you have this holistic approach to internal activation that translates your EVP experience by the employee throughout their time at your company. So everyone's journey is going to look different. But here's just one example of the many culture touch points an employee might have from their time at your organization. So this includes big moments that you're often thinking about: onboarding, career development, maybe promotions, all the way to the exit interview. But it also includes these smaller moments that I think sometimes we forget when we're talking about EVP work, but those include, feeling of belonging in an ERG or other organization event, or just the organization as a whole. This includes what your manager's response is when maybe a project went wrong, or how easily it was to access your health benefits if something unexpected comes up. So all these, there's the ones we think about, and then there's the ones we don't think about as often, but all these go into contributing how your EVP is being perceived, and if it's actually, being lived at your company. So we don't just want to tell you all this without backing it up. We have some numbers to prove exactly what we're saying. So the first one here, a strong EVP is good for employee engagement. Employees who feel strongly connected to culture are 3.7 times as likely to be highly engaged at work. And then when employees are engaged at work, it's good for the bottom line. It's good for your company performance. Companies with highly engaged workforces are 21% more profitable than those with disengaged staff. And lastly, a strong EVP impacts employee retention. So companies that effectively deliver their EVP can reduce turnover by 69%, which is quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thanks, Shannon, for all that great insight. It kind of helps set the stage here. Now I'm excited to turn it over to Jamia, who's going to share a case study on how Sodexo activated their EVP internally. So Jamia, can you start by introducing us to Sodexo and telling us a little bit more about the company and the amazing people who make it what it is?
Absolutely. So Sodexo is a global leader in food and facilities management. We're committed to enhancing the quality of life of our people and in the communities that we serve. We have over 430,000 employees across 80 countries, and we deliver on services across different sectors as far as healthcare, education, and corporate services and more. In the United States alone, we have 104,000 people across 3,400 locations, and many are a part of our frontline workforce. So working at Sodexo is a full circle moment for me because I was first introduced to Sodexo employees in college. So, from an employer brand perspective, we really have an interesting business model that offers two really unique challenges. With our with our employees being predominantly frontline, our employees aren't on their computers every day. Some may not have email addresses. And so we have to figure out different creative ways to get in front of them and deliver our employer brand messaging outside of traditional internal communications. And secondly, our team members are distributed across schools, hospitals, facilities across the country, like I mentioned. And so some of our employees identify with the site locations that they are, working at every day. And so we have to work extra hard to really nurture the relationships that we have with our frontline employees to continue to show them, the Sodexo's culture and who we are as their employer outside of what they may see on their paychecks.
Awesome. So I think that's a really great introduction. Can you also introduce us to the employee value proposition at Sodexo? How did you come up with this, and just kind of walk us through the promise, the EVP promise, and your brand pillars?
Sure. So our EVP research started globally. So we gathered insights from over 7,000 global employees, and we found that we had an opportunity to showcase our authentic culture and unique strengths in a competitive talent market. Our employees consistently showed us and told us, they really emphasized in the importance of belonging and thriving and making an impact in their role and in their communities. And so the research also underscored that today's talent prioritizes a diverse and inclusive work environment, well-being, and really manageable workloads. And these findings positioned us to align our EVP with the evolving expectations of a global workforce. And so this brings us to our EVP in a nutshell that we have here. We put together this one pager that really simplified our EVP for our employees. And so first you see our promise, which is to create a better everyday for everyone to build a better life for all. And this purpose drives everything that we do here at Sodexo, how we treat our employees, how we serve our clients and our communities. I'm not sure if every company has an EVP purpose, but we found it was really powerful to put this purpose in place to connect our company culture to our greater mission. And it also effectively communicated our EVP to our managers and our company leaders that we needed to support the adoption of our EVP. And it truly emphasizes why all of this matters. And so next we have our EVP promise so that our employees can really see how their experience and what we are promising to be their experience will show up in their day-to-day. So we're making sure that our employees really lean into the strong sense of purpose that they may feel with their team members, that they may feel with the role that they're in, that we are building a culture where their role is more than a job. And then lastly, you'll see our EVP pillars and the narrative and the proof points that tie into our pillars. So our EVP pillars are belong, act, thrive. And so what we're saying to our employees is that they can belong to a team, they can act with purpose and feel empowered, and then they can thrive in their own way by having the opportunities to grow in their career. These promises are underpinned by our global proof points that really help bring all of this to life for our employees. And these proof points are local examples that they can connect to really have that concrete action for their day-to-day.
Awesome. So I know your team took kind of a three-tiered approach to activating us internally. Can you take it through it?
Yeah, so once we laid the foundation of our EVP and rolled everything out to our employees, we really wanted to make sure that we took a kind of slow approach to rolling it out so that everyone could really understand it. So the three-tiered approach that you see here is really kind of starting with educate, awareness, and making it real. And so I'll break these three down for you. When we thought about educate, it was really meant to educate our managers and our leaders on our EVP. We understood that, a lot of people outside of employer brand and talent acquisition may not truly know what an employee value proposition is. And so we thought it was really important to lay that strong foundation of educating why it matters and why we put it together. And then for awareness, we wanted to bring awareness to our EVP pillars and the importance of it and how it aligns to the everyday actions of our employees. And, making sure that when they see our pillars, they know that it is tied back to our EVP. And then lastly, making it real. This is the most important of them all, really. Because, and I'll say this kind of throughout this webinar, we wanted to ensure that the EVP did not feel like a project. We wanted to make sure that it didn't feel like extra workload on managers and employees. And so we wanted to make it real by showing the everyday actions, showing that this is truly a part of our culture. It ties into everything that they do every day. And it could be as simple as saying hello to a customer or a colleague, making a student feel special on their first day of school, or taking advantage of a new career opportunity to grow in their career. Those are all things that are aligned to our EVP.
Awesome. So I know we're going to dive deeper into each of these, and you're going to share, a lot of insights of things you did along the way. So let's jump into that first tier of your strategy, which is educate. So can you tell us a little bit more about what your team did?
Yep. So as we begin kind of on our educate journey, we decided to do a virtual roadshow of sorts. So we got in front of our segment leader team calls, and we were able to drive some excitement and educate. We didn't need a lot of time. We just needed about 10 or 15 minutes on their calls just to kind of say, hey, this is coming. This is what we're doing. You'll start to see this brand identity out internally. You'll start to see belong, act, thrive on different assets that you may engage with from time to time. And if you need support, we're here. So that's kind of how we laid the foundation of educating in the beginning, and just trying to be as supportive as we could. Then we got with our managers, because we knew that our managers were going to be key to successfully activating our EVP internally. Because our managers have kind of these day-to-day experiences with our employees, especially frontline. We wanted to make sure that we were properly getting the information from them that they needed to be successful. So we had these focus groups, we gathered the feedback, and we really saw that they wanted to be educated. They were interested in being educated on it. They were interested in having the resources that they could leverage with their own teams so that they could effectively communicate the messaging to them. And so after we did the focus groups, we decided, okay, it would be nice if they had a toolkit that they could reference. So we built out our EVP manager toolkit, which was really designed to be a strategic resource to empower our managers to bring this EVP to life throughout their own teams. We found that our employees needed things to be very simplified in a way that it just kind of naturally worked into their day-to-day workflows and some of the local initiatives that they were already doing. And so when we did version 1 of our EVP toolkit, we took it from the top. We said, okay, this is the EVP. This is what an EVP is. This is the difference between employer brand. And we gave every single detail that they could possibly need to learn about the EVP and to learn about what it means to Sodexo. Now we're on to version 2, because we found as we rolled out version 1, it's just a lot of information. And sometimes it can be a little bit of information overload, especially when this is not your day-to-day world. And so we kind of condensed version 1 into smaller bite-sized digestible information that our managers can take and use as one-pagers, or they can print something off and keep it at their desk, or they can include it into a presentation that they're already doing with their teams. And so it was good to kind of have that feedback, and it's nice to kind of see version 2 versus version 1, because looking back, we were like, yeah, this was a lot of information.
Yeah, no, and I think still had the version 1, that education piece of what an EVP is still important, but I think it's always, we're trying to constantly iterate and get better.
Exactly.
So lesson learned. I would think maybe some people out there are wondering, at this education stage, what do you do if managers aren't interested? Or if you encounter, like, did your team encounter any pushback from managers saying like, I'm too busy, I don't have time for this kind of thing? And how did you approach that?
Absolutely. So we know everyone is busy, and we don't need it. We didn't want to add any additional work to anyone's plate. And so we did receive a little bit of resistance, but it was natural resistance because adopting a new process for anything can be a little scary. But what we did was we provided examples of what they're already doing. So we said, okay, we know you're already having team meetings. We know you meet with your employees maybe once a day. We know you meet during one-on-ones. So these are some of the times that you can speak about the EVP, or you can recognize your employee for doing something great that align back to the EVP. And so once we started making those connections click for our managers and our employees, really, they really started to kind of get on board and say, okay, this doesn't feel like extra work.
I think that's really good advice. That's a great segue into the next tier of your strategy here, which is driving awareness.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, our managers were telling us that they wanted training on how to embed the EVP into their teams and into their day-to-day. So we put together this table that gives real examples of pieces of the talent lifecycle and the everyday actions that align with each of the pillars of our EVP. And so this was helpful for our managers because it gave them ideas to get started, and it shows them how they are already doing these things to activate the EVP naturally, which goes back to my earlier point of ensuring that it doesn't feel like a project, and that they can see every piece of the talent lifecycle kind of in front of them.
It's definitely like a reframing, and it's like you're already doing it.
Exactly.
I like how it's segmented by the stage of the employee experience, from talent attraction, onboarding, all the way through to developing, and then when an employee leaves your team. So it's segmented really well.
And then being kind of simple, putting it in the small win, putting it in our EVP colors. So they're still seeing like some of the nuggets that are kind of tying together.
Mm-hmm. And I know this is another graphic that your team, a resource you provided too, right?
Yep. So this is probably one of my favorites because I love a checklist. So, we put together a checklist for our managers to be able to leverage, again, something that can print off and have at their desk, something that kind of gives them quick reminders of how to activate the EVP, and really tie it all together. And then they can kind of use this whenever they're meeting with employees one-on-one, or if they're having weekly meetings, or like I mentioned, having it just kind of up so that they see it and their employees see it.
Mm-hmm. And then just going back to your tip earlier of keeping it simple, I'm sure there's temptation to add like 5 other checks.
Yes.
Category, because there's so much people can do, but I think just having it on one page, nice and succinct, that it's more impactful that way.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's get to the third, and you said arguably most important stage, is making it real.
Yes, absolutely. So of course, when you're rolling on an EVP, you want to embed it across all aspects of your culture, and you can't really do everything at once. So we started slow, like I mentioned, and we looked for those moments that mattered. That's kind of what we hung our hat on when we wanted to begin activating this, because we wanted to look at the employee life cycle and see where we could maximize our EVP presence. So we started with something simple of just putting it into our onboarding for managers. We have a session in our onboarding that explains the EVP to new hires, how our pillars align with our company culture. And then within that session, we begin to ask questions to our new hires around why they chose to work at Sodexo. And when they're answering their questions, some of their answers, we notice we're tying back to our EVP and to our pillars. And so we're like, okay, this is working, because they're seeing it externally, but it also is showing up when they join, and they're seeing it internally as well. And so then we also worked with our managers, like I mentioned before, to kind of naturally put this into the moments that matter for their employees. So team meetings, one-on-ones, et cetera.
I know this daily team huddle is an important thing in the Sodexo team culture, right?
It is, because in our frontline teams, they typically will kind of either start the morning, they'll have the morning huddles, or either it might be like midday, but it's just kind of to get the day started. And it's a quick meeting that they may have, maybe like 10 minutes or so, just to kind of set the foundation of the day.
Yeah, no, I can imagine how powerful that is, though, if you're giving managers a playbook to embed these parts of your culture into this daily interaction, that you can see how that can really build on itself day in and day out. Okay, what's next?
Employee resource groups. So we partner closely with our employee resource groups almost every day. We are constantly kind of bugging them to say, hey, can we embed this into any events that you have going on? Or is there an opportunity to kind of get in front of you? Or are there any stories that we could tell from your ERG? So we really work closely with our leaders to find those opportunities to share internally and externally.
And I know your team hosted, I think, like a really great learning series that was kind of based around your EVP, right?
Yep. So we did, we had a 3-month learning series with our women's ERG, and it was the Belong, Act, Thrive learning series and summer learning series. So we did it from June, July, and August, and we had our employees come, we selected several employees to come share their story, a career story around either Belong, Act, or Thrive. And so it was a good way for us to get in front of a large scale of employees, but really for our employees to see how their peers are aligned with our EVP, and our peers have great motivating career stories to kind of help them get on with their career as well.
Wonderful. Okay, and then I know community involvement's really big too.
Yep. So we really encourage our employees to participate in any company-sponsored volunteer activities or non-sponsored volunteering opportunities, because again, this ties back to that act with purpose and kind of finding that purpose inside the company and outside of the company.
And then I know recognition too.
Yep. And so recognition is really what it is, finding ways for our managers and our employees to recognize each other, whether that is leveraging some of our company recognition resources, or if it's nominating an employee or a colleague for exemplifying the EVP in their day-to-day work, or simply giving them a kudos in a team meeting or on social media really goes a long way. And so all of these strategies kind of make it real for our employees. And employee storytelling, which we'll dive deeper into a little later, it is the key to making all of this real. It really is the moments that matter to our employees and how they show up and the experiences that they are having. And so we really wanted to maximize the impact that we have with these employee stories by sharing them internally and externally.
No, absolutely. And that's such really great examples shared throughout there. So I know you've kind of littered this section so far with tips about frontline workforce, but I just want to give you an opportunity just kind of to speak specifically to this, this really important group within Sodexo and some ways that your team has built engagement with them.
Sure. So as I mentioned, communicating with our frontline employees is top priority for us. We want to make sure, again, that they are feeling the culture that we have here at Sodexo, understanding how their role makes a big impact for Sodexo, along with their client sites where they may be working. So we partner closely with managers to ensure they have the knowledge that they need. But then we also look for different creative ways of rolling this out to our employees. And that could be from any branded collateral that they may see, anything that they may see kind of up at their site location, if we're able to do that. And then also interviewing our employees to really see their story, understand their story, ask them why they joined Sodexo, why they wanted to be here, why they enjoy the work that they're doing every day. And I'll dive a little deeper into that too, of how my team is structured on gathering that information. But those are some of the things that we've been doing. And it's really about finding those key themes that matter most to our frontline employees, to be able to support them and share their stories.
It kind of goes back to that, like, personalizing at scale.
Yep.
Challenge that we talked about earlier. Awesome. So thanks for that really great case study, Jamia. And I know we're going to talk more about the employee storytelling piece in a moment. Before we move on, we just want to quickly recap the key takeaways on internal EVP activation so far that we've discussed. And that first is to play the long game. So don't just focus on the launch, but really taking a holistic approach and embedding your EVP across every touch point in your company culture, including some really great ways that Jamia shared, like that daily huddle or partnering with ERGs. Second, keeping it simple. Your leaders and managers are crucial in sharing the EVP with their teams, so making it easy for them to understand and communicate those aspects of your culture. So having a clear mantra or clear things that you can point to, like for Sodexo, emphasizing belong, act, thrive, just 3 simple words that really kind of hone managers in on what's most important. Third, show what success looks like. So giving managers the resources and guidance they need, checklists, examples, tools to help them bring the EVP to life in practical ways. And then finally, identifying moments that matter. You can't do everything at once, but focusing on key inflection points at the beginning to make maximum impact. Okay. So now we're going to move into our final section here, which is employee storytelling. At Stories Inc., this is our bread and butter, so we're really excited about this section here, and how you can share real employee stories in order to activate your EVP internally and drive sustained engagement for the long term. So I'm going to turn things over to Shannon here.
Thank you. So as Bernadette alluded to here and Jamia spoke to earlier, employee storytelling is essential to activating your EVP internally. Otherwise, it's just words on a page, on your intranet, on a back of a t-shirt. And from our poll earlier, it sounds like a lot of you are using storytelling. So you already may know the importance that your EVP brings to life employee stories. They are the proof that your EVP is in action. As you go about interviewing your employees and creating video content or blogs or other pieces of photos, content that's going on your website, it's important to check in and make sure that you're uncovering stories and not just testimonials. So we've all heard the "we're family," or, you know, "I'm able to bring my whole self to work." And while these are well-intentioned and great, these testimonials don't give you real insight into your EVP or really build emotion with your employees or external candidates. So some pieces that are good for when you are looking for a story. Our stories are specific and personal. Again, this builds that emotional connection that you really need with your audience. Stories give real insight. They're grounded in your EVP promises, and they give a deeper understanding of your workplace. And finally, your company should be a supporting character in the story. While the employee's story is the most important piece, we want to make sure that you're still highlighting the company, whether it's, you know, a benefit, a program that you were part of, but it's really that supporting character. So as you start activating your EVP using employee stories, you kind of get this flywheel effect that starts to happen. So looking at the inside of the circle here, when you share your EVP internally, employees feel more connected to your culture and feel compelled to take a positive action in their own lives at work. This is great for building culture and employee engagement. And when you share these stories externally, candidates get real insight into your company culture. And we see that alignment where the candidate expectations match the reality of the work. This is great for talent attraction and ultimately employee engagement and retention. The more you fuel this wheel with content, the faster and more organically it's going to feel like it's flowing. And ultimately, your EVP is celebrated with every piece of content that you are publishing. So if you need another reason for employee stories, they help you tackle all of the challenges that we identified at the beginning of this session. So where you might meet cultural resistance, stories builds and makes connections to the new EVP. Stories make the promise real by grounding your EVP in real employee experiences. Stories help personalize at scale by helping employees see themselves in the story that's being told. It helps influence internally by supporting and showing employees and leaders what success stories look like, and it makes it easier for them to buy into. Stories help sustain engagement in your internal communication channels and just keep EVP top of mind on an ongoing basis for everyone involved. And lastly, the measuring impact. Employee stories give you an avenue for tracking employee engagement and EVP awareness over time. So now moving into our partnership, let's talk about, the storytelling approach that Sodexo used. So Stories Inc. partnered with Jamia and her team to create employee story content that brought their EVP pillars, belong, act, and thrive, to life. So Jamia, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk just more about your partnership with us at Stories.
Yeah, so I was really excited to partner with Stories Inc. again to bring our EVP to life visually. We chose Stories Inc. because they just have a natural ability to uncover these compelling stories that will resonate with everyone. And not to mention they're really easy and nice to work with. So we decided to partner with them to interview about 16 employees. So we chose our locations that had the most frontline employees, but also managers as well, so that we would have a well balance of representation for our employees. So we chose a campus and we chose a hospital. And we interviewed employees in roles such as culinary or facilities management, some general managers, and dietitians. And we were able to get 6 videos that are now in our content library. Some are longer form videos and some are shorter videos to be able to use on social media. We're able to include them internally as well on our intranet. And then on our career site as well. And then we also were able to receive a full photo library from the video and photo shoot that we are currently leveraging the photos internally and externally as well. And our global team has also asked to use them as well. So very excited about the content. We also were able to get our transcript, which was really helpful for us, kind of going back to Shannon's point about, stories are not gathering testimonials, but gathering stories. So from the stories that we were able to gather, we were then in turn able to turn those stories into testimonial quotes to be able to use on social media and across our career site as well. So lots of content we were able to capture, and great stories we were able to capture as well.
Thanks, Jamia. And one thing that I know that you've said before is that the actual process of the interview is really great for internal activation. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit about just the experience for Sodexo?
Sure. So the Stories team made it really simple for our employees to, feel comfortable with the whole video shoot and interview as well. So we had some prep calls in the beginning, and that kind of set the foundation of kind of how the days were going to go for the shoot. And then once we got into the shoot, we were able to kind of make the employees feel a little bit more comfortable with the lights and the camera in front of them, and just told them like this was going to just be a conversation. So learning a little bit more about them, learning a little bit more about
Like we're frozen here for a second.
naturally, our employees were really speaking to our EVP, and even saying, hey, can you make sure you say this? It was just excited about that.
Awesome. And I'm not sure if that was me or for everyone else, there was a little bit of internet stuff there, but
Okay.
that's okay. But I think just to kind of summarize the sentiment there, just that the conversation, it being a free-flowing conversation, that employees were just very naturally speaking to the EVP, which I think speaks to what a great job your team did with embedding it throughout the culture.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to share one example of a story that came out of these interview days, and it's a really powerful story from a team member. Here we go.
The food is served with love. We make it plentiful. We make it good. We enjoy that part, but we know our mission. Our mission is patience. I had a patient, he did not want no one in his room. I got phone calls every day about he wouldn't eat, wouldn't talk, wouldn't take his meds, wouldn't do his therapy. So one day I went upstairs and talked to him. First day he put me out. Third day I went back and talked to him. And I said, you might as well get used to me because I'm not going anywhere. We have to find common ground of where this is going to get you better. So I asked him, tell me one thing that I can go get you that you'll eat. And he said, if I told you the one thing I would eat, you guys don't have it anyway. So I said, what is it that you would eat? Peach cobbler. So I called downstairs, had the chef make him a small peach cobbler. That was the very first thing he ate here. And he ate every meal from that day until he left. That right there was more enjoyment than a paycheck for me.
So that was Willie Morton. He's one of our patient services managers at a hospital in Washington, D.C. And you can see Willie's passion for his patients. And he was able to kind of have that relationship already built with the chef. And so his story really is the epitome of belong, act, thrive. So we love being able to share that.
Yeah, one before we move to our next slide, I think one just great storytelling tip from that story is the storyteller doesn't have to use the specific word like belong, act, thrive. I think Willie kind of latched on to purpose. That was the word that he was using a lot in this, which is wonderful. And I think just as marketers and employer brand professionals and communicators, you can take that story and then connect it to your EVP. So in this case, belong, act, thrive. I think this one embodies act with purpose really strongly. So it's like you can focus on the really great story and then through your titles and through how you just share it, connect back to your EVP. So just kind of like one little storytelling tip there. Yeah. Awesome. So Jamia, I know that the work that we created together formed really strong foundational content, but it is just one piece of the Sodexo's greater employee storytelling strategy. So can you just speak a little bit to how your team approaches content and what that looks like on like a weekly, quarterly basis?
Sure. So this is kind of a closer look at our content calendar in a shell. And so we really take it from the perspective of we want to tell employee stories throughout all of the content that we have. So I have a talent experience manager on my team who manages our content calendar and the content strategy for our third party channels. And I also have a talent experience specialist on my team who is kind of like our little journalist. So she goes out and she interviews some of the employees to get their stories. And then in turn, we turn it on our social channels. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Glassdoor. And we try to share at least 2 to 3 blog posts a month. So once my talent experience manager, or excuse me, talent experience specialist gets the stories, we will turn them into blog posts as well to be able to post on our Life at Sodexo blog. And so we try to post at least 2 to 3 blogs per month and about 2 to 3 social posts per week per channel. And so thankfully we kind of had the bandwidth to be able to do this, and we try to stay a month ahead. We partner closely with our comms team who manages our LinkedIn. So we are able to kind of get some content out there as well and share their content on our channels as well. And then we have segment marketing specialists that we partner with, that my team partners with, to create content to be able to share out on our channels. And we also have an internal newsletter that goes out from our internal communications team. And if we have any EVP content or any employee stories, we try to get that into the bi-monthly email newsletter that goes out to our managers. So we try to kind of have employee stories go out once a month during the months that we are tied to heritage. Some of our heritage months. And so that kind of helps bring the stories to life as well, because it's kind of knocking two out at once.
It's like the right message at the right time. So
Exactly.
like I love Chef Appreciation Month, that it's like that's something that's top of mind in a way that you can really delight those team members. And so if you can pair a culinary story during Chef Appreciation Month, that's awesome.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, great. So if you're out there asking, how do I get started creating employee storytelling content? Based on the poll at the beginning, it seems like a lot of you are already doing a really great job doing this. But here is your storytelling playbook in 6 steps. So first, we would recommend defining your objective upfront. So before diving in, identify key talent groups or locations that really need to be featured, as well as selecting your content channels that'll help guide your project and set you up for success. Next, you're going to select the employees that you want to feature. And managers, HR partners, ERG leaders are going to be a really great resource here to help point you to the employees with the best stories. Then you're going to interview them. Facilitated conversations really work best here because they allow you to ask really powerful follow-up questions that help connect the story to your company culture. And then just a pro tip here, and Jamia alluded to this, but once you have those interviews, get them transcribed so you can read them through, you can highlight, you can bucket them. At Stories Inc., we theme all of our interviews based on culture theme, and it helps us stay organized and go back to stories later when we need them. Next, you're going to create the content. So you're going to take those stories and turn them into videos, blogs, and social media posts. And then finally, you're going to distribute, share them across your channels, and really do this on repeat. The most effective storytelling strategy is one that is ongoing and consistent. So it's really important to always be doing this so that you can sustain that engagement over time. And every content library is unique. It's going to be unique to your organization and your EVP. But a question we get a lot is, what content do I need? And those on the bottom of the slide here, these are the ones that we would most recommend. So overview videos that really bring your EVP and brand pillars to life. Employee spotlight videos like that one from Lily. So allowing an employee to tell a longer form story and really share their personality a little bit and share an impactful moment for them really goes a long way. Employee photos are just like a must-have, and you can use them in so many ways, internally and externally. And then just as you think about your content library, try to set yourself up for consistency. So if you have a blog, maybe not trying to post a blog a week if you're not going to be able to do that for a whole year. So that like twice a month for Sodexo, so 2 to 3 times a month, that sounds like that's a really great cadence that you can maintain over time. So just having an eye for consistency as you build out your content library. Okay, so Jamia, you've shared so much insights today. Can you tell us a little bit about how your team measures success and any kind of like success indicators that you've seen so far? I know this is a work in progress.
Sure. So like many of you, we're evolving, and we're trying to make sure that, we're seeing the best engagement, and we have the best employee experience, and our employees are staying. So this is kind of how we're doing it. We are looking at our employee engagement and the experience kind of together and how it aligns to the culture that we have here. We have an employee survey that goes out every other year, and we were able to include some EVP questions in the survey for the first time. And we actually saw an overall increase in our employees feeling a sense of belonging and happiness, and they feel that they have a place here at Sodexo to grow their career. So we're hoping to continue to see those numbers trend up. That is really going to be important for us to make sure that we are retaining our employees.
And it's great just to have those questions consistently, because then you can really track the progress over time too. That's super smart. And then what's next for Sodexo's EVP?
Yeah. So hopefully, we're going to continue to sustain what we've already put in place, continue to build those relationships with the managers, and making sure that we're continuing to receive the feedback from our managers as well about how their employees are feeling. Continuing to share employee stories, whether that is in long form or in short form, or written form or video. We want to make sure that we are getting those employee stories out, and ensuring that they're not coming across as testimonials, like Shannon mentioned, and continue to identify the moments that matter to our employees, and especially our frontline employees. We want to build that strong foundation and build that strong connection with our frontline employees, so they really feel like Sodexo is the place for them.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything, Jamia. We have about 5 minutes left. So we are open for questions. So if anyone has any specific questions, please feel free to leave it in the chat. I saw someone asked earlier if there are sources for the stats we shared earlier. Yes, there are. So I'll include them in, I'll follow up with that person after the fact and share them with you. But I'll leave just like 90 seconds here to see if we get any questions come in. Oh, this is a good one. Okay, so one question for you, Jamia. How is Sodexo's global employer brand team structured?
Yeah, so we have
this is on global, I guess there.
Sure. So globally we have employees in similar positions as mine, across the globe. So we meet about every quarter, and kind of come together to best practice share, to kind of share what's going on in each of the countries, and really kind of see how they're activating in their various countries. And then also seeing some of the challenges that we're facing, and seeing kind of how they're different. And so it's some countries have a little bit more people on their teams, on their EVP teams. It just kind of varies per country.
Is Belong Act Thrive consistent across the globe, or is that the US EVP?
No, it's consistent. This is our global EVP.
Awesome. Great question. Yes, someone asked, yes, the slides will be shared in addition to the recording. Okay, another question. Jamia, do you have separate individual strategies for different regions and countries?
Yes, so we have an overarching strategy for our EVP, and then each region is responsible for activating it within their own region based off of the need of their region, their employees, in the different countries.
Okay, this will be our last question. Do you have an employee app?
No, but I wish. That would be cool.
Awesome. Thank you for the questions and participating in the chat, everyone. I think Jamia told me this ahead of time that I could say this. She's open to follow-up questions, so please connect with her on LinkedIn, and she's wonderful to talk and discuss with. So I'm sure she would love to answer any additional questions.
Yep, happy to help.
Okay, so I'll kind of wrap us up here. Thank you so much for joining us. Just to summarize some of the things that we talked about today, just looking into that strategy, that internal EVP activation is the ultimate long game, and you really need to look for ways that you can embed it across the entire life cycle, not just at that EVP launch point. Second, I'm going to steal Jamia's strategy here: educate, drive awareness, and make it real. I think is a really great 3-step model for activating this across your organization. And then finally, using employee stories to create that flywheel effect and sustain engagement over time within your organization. Hopefully you can take those lessons away with you. Thank you so much, everyone. 2 minutes to spare, so somewhat right on time, but we're Stories Inc. Please, if you liked this session, follow Stories Inc. on LinkedIn for more employee storytelling best practices and resources. We also have a bi-weekly newsletter. And if you're looking to activate your own EVP internally and have any questions about how to incorporate employee storytelling into your strategy, please reach out. We would love to schedule a call and see how we can help. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jamia and Shannon, for joining us. And we'll see everyone next time.
Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.